How are you, dude?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm very, very good, and I am glad that you came and joined me on a virtual beer.
There you go.
I have
Cheers.
to, cheers. Yeah, you're in your coffee. I know it's kind of early there. For me, it's 1 a.m.
Oh
So
yeah.
trying to wake myself up. Um, I have to tell you from all the guests I was talking with, and it's so important for me, to keep that door open. Even before the whole pandemic started,
Yeah.
I was doing that because I am like million miles away from you guys. And it's so important for me to stay in tune with what's happening outside and, be involved and do whatever I can. So I was talking with many people that I'm very excited, but I have to tell you that I found out today that from all the people I talked to, I am most excited talking to you, honestly.
Oh yeah.
And that's because I'm a crazy fan of all the things that you've been doing, and to a point that I want to embarrass you a little bit more, but to a point that I was listening, yesterday again, I did my homework and I was listening to all the stuff you've produced and mixed, and we're going to talk about it. And I was like, that you're like, why am I still alive? Why? No, but in a good way. It's like
Yeah, yeah, totally.
start this kind of experience of people who doing what we're doing understand how much of work and commitment you have to have, and years of experience. And that's why I am really, really happy to talk to you, because that means a lot to me. Also on my,
Oh, I appreciate that.
professional level, on my personal love to music, to that kind of music. So I'm really, really appreciating, you being here. So I
Cool.
might be mumbling a
Thanks.
little bit. So I have to drink a little more. Um, where am I finding you? Are you in your studio right now?
No, I'm actually at home right now. I'm having some work done in my studio. We're building like an actual tracking room. I've had the control room done for a year, and we've been building like a small tracking room for like vocals and guitar overdubs and stuff like that. So we're actually painting today. Actually, I got a couple of guys in there painting today. So I'm at home now. Yeah.
Right now, so it's like your studio. You have one control room, one recording. Can you tell me? Because I guess you can't take me on a tour, but if you can describe a little bit how it looks like.
Yeah, so it's a smallish control room. It's just the idea is like I go to another studio and do the basics, like do the drums, like track most of the stuff there, and then go back to my studio and do like the overdubs, place that I don't need, things I don't need like a giant studio for, like vocals and guitar
Right.
overdubs, even some bass or whatever. Pretty much anything but drums, really. And then
Right.
so I can go back there and track that stuff and then mix it. So it's just like a small setup. It's manageable. It's just mine. It's not a commercial space. So I just wanted something that was like manageable overhead. It's not like a ton of money every month, and something that I could easily just take care of myself and not have to like stress if I leave to go on tour. I don't have to worry about somebody being there to like make sure everything
Right.
gets paid and all that stuff. It's just like a small, like manageable studio.
I think that's the smartest way to go. That's what I found out. When I had that rehearsal room and all. It was in Tel Aviv here in Israel. It wasn't something crazy. It's a small recording studio,
Yeah.
but yeah, but it was kind of like you become a slave to that. And I
Yeah.
thought, I mean, it is like that, but anyway, it's still like that when you're independent and doing what we're doing. But there, I could, like you said, I couldn't just leave the room empty. You have to bring someone and all that. So I also figured it out, whatever you can do to do all the stuff for like the post stuff, what
Right.
yeah, so
Yeah.
that's pretty.
I ran a commercial studio for years, and it's a lot of work. It's like it's to make just when you're not recording, you're maintaining gear, you're
Right.
cleaning, you're taking care of all this stuff that you don't, when you're working 12, 15-hour days, you don't have a chance to get to. So on your days off, you have to go in and take care of all that stuff. You know what I mean? So It's just
Right.
like nonstop. And I didn't want to do that again. I want to have a space that I can, do like small overdubs, like, track one person at a time type of thing. But I didn't want like the full, responsibility of running a full on studio.
Absolutely. And for that type of thing that you're doing, it's definitely, the way to go.
Yeah.
How many years you're doing that? Because you're doing that for many years.
I've been recording bands for over 20 years. Yeah.
Damn.
Yeah.
And you
I'm
did
old.
about like 5 years. There's like after like few years, there's this breakdown when you ask yourself, "What the hell am I doing?" Is that happened to you or just me?
Every day. Yeah. Every day.
Yeah. 20 years. What was like the first band you remember that you've been working with that was like the biggest kind of production recording project?
I mean, probably like the first band that kind of got me noticed was Pelican.
Mm.
We did an EP. It was like a 4-song EP for them, and I think that was like 99 or 2000 is when we did that, and that was like the first thing that like that I did that really like got signed. Like it got signed to Hydra Head, which was the ISIS label, and people were like really dug into it and they really liked it, and so I started getting like a lot of interest just based off of that record. So that was like, I guess, the first one that kind of like put me kind of in the spotlight for certain genres and bands.
Nice. Yes, and we will go into that area of production and mix more deeper. But before that, okay, so you're a musician, and what I don't like that question, but but on a personal level, but I have to. You are more of a musician, or I know I've heard an interview with you before, and you said that you're more of the creative side of doing that and less of the technical.
Yeah.
Is it still like that? Are you seeing yourself like, let's say if you need to give up one of those, like, studio and just be a musician, or give up music? Oh, it's a terrible question. I don't know why am I doing that. It's a terrible one. But as a feeling of yourself, are you more of an artist, or are you like to help musicians to see their vision come through, be the
Yeah.
behind the curtain kind of guy?
Yeah. I mean, I love both sides of it. Obviously I love creating, so anytime I have a chance to create, that's my goal. That's my priority. But being a musician doesn't always translate to dollars,
Oh
so
yeah.
um so I feel fortunate to where if I'm not able to create music on my own, then I can at least have made a career to where I can help other people create their music. You know what I mean? So in a way, it's still creative to me. I still have like a creative output or input uh, pretty much on all albums that I work on in some form or another. I try to put a little bit of myself into it, and because that's what the band wants. They're hiring me not just to like plug a microphone in, but they want what I can bring to the table. So even if I'm working on another record, it's still a creative process. But I mean, if I had to pick one or the other, like creating my own music is definitely my priority, and
And
I try
that's
to
what
do that as best as I can.
and that's what makes us, not us, because I'm not in that level in any way, but that's what makes you a better producer or engineer, because when you're always creating too, that kind of bring you back to I believe, because I have talked with all kind of the spectrum of the rainbow of people, more artists or more engineers, and I can
Sure.
definitely see that people that also creating, it's so much helping to keep also being very professional on the level of working. It only makes sense because what, as an artist, what you like and the way you like to work, and that's really helping. And you doing the music that you love creating, and also
Right.
have the privilege to work with bands that you know guide them. So that's making sense to me. That's why it's always working together, and that's great you're still creating and doing.
Yeah. Well, I mean, the way I see it is oftentimes I'm the first person to hear this band's songs outside of themselves. You know what I mean? Like, usually, like, unless they play it for their friends or whatever, usually I'm the first person to hear it that's not a band member. So it's
Right.
nice, I feel like, as a musician, you want that outside output. You know what I mean? You want somebody that's not as in it as you are, as close as you are, to like give some feedback and tell you what they think and what, maybe some ways that a song could be improved or changed, or just an idea that maybe you didn't think of. You know what I mean?
Yeah, but now I'm gonna get mean. But do you do that with your own music? Do you give it to someone else to mix, or you say no
Yeah,
way?
totally. No, I don't, not to mix, just because that process is really fun for me. So I don't, it would be, I mean, I do remixes with other people sometimes, but I definitely mix all of my stuff, but I do play it for other people and try to get some feedback,
Feedbacks, but you can't just let it to someone else to do that. Now, as a
No.
musician, I know it's
Yeah.
it's a one-way ticket, but
Yeah.
mastering is something that you are doing yourself, or you're working with other studios.
I usually have someone else master my records. I'll do mastering sometimes, if it's just like a couple of songs, or if it's like a band that's a really tight budget, or they're friends of mine, whatever. But if it's an album, if it's a full length album that I've mixed, I generally don't master it, because I like to have another set of ears, another perspective on it. Somebody that can like catch all my mistakes, before
Right.
it
It's
goes out.
so
You know what I mean?
so important.
Yeah.
It's so
Definitely.
important for people who working in mixing and audio all the time, to keep the ear fresh and to take a break and to give it to other people to help and to listen. It's definitely um, very important to do. You're right. And I want you to tell me a few of the projects that you are as a musician working on right now, and like active projects, because I was kind of got lost when I was reading in your website and I was looking. So what is it you do as a musician right now? And now is like also pandemic stuff, so is it actually going on?
Well, I've been just kind of working on like solo stuff. I mean, honestly, I've just been writing songs, and I don't really have a purpose for a lot of them. I'm just kind of writing just for the sake of writing. I always like to have like a catalog of just stuff that I can always go to at any point. But I do have a few things in the works. I've like a couple of collaboration projects that I've kind of working on. And I've been doing the music for a film, like a horror thriller movie. So I've been doing that as well. So
Which
that's, as
one?
far as like my creative output, it's mostly been as like the last like month, I've been mostly working on the movie, and then just whenever I have extra downtime, I'll just like start working on a song. You know what I mean? I'll sometimes I'll just start playing around. I'll get like a new pedal or a new synth, and I'll start fucking with it,
Right.
and it'll like I'll create like a little loop or something that I like, and then I'll just start building off of that, and then it ends up becoming like a song
Right.
with no real purpose for it. You know what I mean?
I love that the most. This is,
Yeah.
again, as an artist, this is the best part, when you just don't need to start and calculating, like just do it. I think that's the purpose of art, like just do whatever it is. And it took me years to realize that the best stuff just comes when you sit down and you just do what you do, and then you move on, and you even forget about it, and you listen to that later, and you're like, well, I don't know if I did it. That
Yeah.
feeling.
Right.
I don't know. Did I do that? Okay, I don't
No,
know. I didn't know I'm that good.
I do have so much stuff now that I've just like folders and folders of stuff that I haven't done anything with, that sometimes I'll just spend like an
Do
entire
it.
day just going through it and just trying to remember what I did. You know what I mean? And most of the stuff by this point, I don't even remember like even actually making it. It's just like, oh, here's a song I made one night at like 3 a.m. or whatever.
Right.
But some of that stuff is cool. I mean, a lot of it's not, but some of it's cool, and I end up using it for stuff.
So it's mainly solo you're doing now, the solo
Yeah,
stuff.
I'm like working on like another solo record. Well, I've been trying to anyway. But yeah, I basically just been like accumulating a bunch of tracks until I
Ooh, I
get
can't wait to hear that.
until I get enough stuff that I think is like worthy of actually putting on a record with my name on it.
Yes. All right, that's cool. So there's things to wait for. And that movie you mentioned, is it something that going out sometimes,
Yeah, I mean, I would probably at this point it'll be like something released in the fall, maybe. It's still like it's in the edit. It's been shot. It's in the editing phase now, and I'm doing all the music for it. So I don't know. We probably still have like a month to go before it's done.
Is it
So
the
I would
first
say
movie
like,
you're making? First movie you're
it's,
making?
it's the first feature film. Yeah, I've done like smaller things before, but this is the first like actual full length movie that I've done.
All right, yeah, because I haven't seen anything about post-production in your website. So I'm wondering, maybe I missed something.
No, well, my website's severely outdated. I need to fix
Yeah,
that.
I was very gentle saying that, but you should,
Yeah.
because so many. I was so interested to know, and I was like, is it? I don't know if it's true,
Yeah, no,
because YouTube said
it's
something else.
it's pretty pathetic. Yeah, that's actually high on my priority list is to get that thing fixed. So
All right,
hopefully
so
soon.
there's a movie coming, and that's all right. We're gonna stay tuned and see what's happening. Okay, now I've been um listening to all of the stuff that you were mixing and producing. I hope I didn't miss anything. And I have to say that uh, I am like an extremely fan of what you're doing, and I think you have like this signature of sound, of a unique sound that you're doing, that's what kind of made me like um I have few monitors that I'm working with, and I have my focal here, and I was sitting down with, I think it's Sennheiser in-ears.
Yeah,
And I love to listen also in my in-ears because they are so uh, clean,
yeah,
so not lying and very, very clear,
it's very
clear,
flat. Yeah,
very flat. So, and that's how I usually love to listen to stuff that I really want, like technical listening, not
yeah,
just enjoy the music.
right.
And there's this amazing way that you have done through the years, and I hear it. I was hearing that in almost every song and every band and every album that you were making, that it's like there's like no one else. Now I know, if someone will put that after I did my research, now
Yeah.
if someone will give me to listen, I'll know it's you. And that's very, very and that's very amazing, that the way that you've been able to make that signature, which I'm sure you didn't mean to do that, but just by your love to a certain type of way music should be sound, to your opinion,
Right.
you've been creating that. And I think it's really, really my taste, and especially that the lower frequencies that you manage to make them to be so pretty and smooth and fat and nice,
Right.
which usually this is where things get, that's where the problem is. This is
Yeah.
like when
Yeah.
things get, accidents. And so your mixes are very wide. That's the first thing you can hear. Everything is very wide.
Yeah.
um and that's the first thing, that's kind of like what brought to me when I was listening to the music, that it's like everything is super wide. The low ends are so rich, and I have to ask you about that. Is it something that you can say? I know it's very difficult because it's many things together. It's the instrument, it's the player, it's the room, it's the drum set, it's everything together. But if you need to name few of the things that allows you that you're like not compromised when you need to record or mix to reach that amazing low ends of yours, that in that kind of heavy music the sense says that it should be a completely chaos. And
Yeah.
again, and I'm saying it also to people who interested in sound and they listen not necessarily to heavy music and they know how it's like to make process on, I don't know, whatever, pop music or jazz. They know how hard it is to reach to that beautiful low ends with that kind of massive production.
Right.
Tell me the secrets.
And I guess for me, like low end is just such an important thing that I try to just spend a lot of time down there. You know what I mean? Like I I know a lot of guys kind of just try to just cut it, high pass it, and just try to get rid of it because it is I mean it is difficult to work with, but to me that's like the soul and the heart of a mix. You know what I mean? Is the low end. So I try to spend a lot of time down there. Like majority of my time is kind of playing with low end and trying to just fit everything together because it's not easy, you know, and it's difficult. So it's basically just knowing what instruments to really harness the low end on and what instruments you can just get rid of it. Because, you know, it's not, I know a lot of guys try to get a lot of it out of the guitar, but to me, the guitar isn't where, you know, it's the bass. The bass is like where all the meat is, you know, or the kick drum. A lot of guys will try to get it out of they'll just get the kick drum like super bassy. But to me, like the low end is like in the bass. It's like the sub bass frequencies, you know. So I try to like really push that and get that in focus, and then just kind of set everything on top of that. You know, I try not to get all my low end out of the kick drum. I try to get it all out of the bass instrument. You know, whether it's like bass guitar, bass synth. You know, I try to like use that, like, you know, have like if the bass is sitting here, having the kick sitting just like right on top of it, you know, and then the guitars are just kind of wide and filling out the rest.
All right. So you do hear that. You do hear that on your mixes where you do have the presence of the bass, but it's very into the genre that we're talking about that you kind of created, which is that lower frequencies of the bass is totally there, but it's not. It's still pleasant. Like it's not this woo thing, you know, that it's still another a whole new spectrum of frequencies that are there and serve the music, and it still have that tonality that I have no idea how you reach, that are amazing. And how is it, so you also taking the bass drum to even be lower than what I would do. Like if when I'm mixing, I always have that, like what you said, I have that I need to make kind of like compromises, which I hate to do, but I feel I have to do to cut through the bass a little bit to give room to the bass drum. You know, there are a lot of people who are suffering with that. So you are saying you're not just not doing that, you're boosting the bass of the bass. And then how do you do your kick?
Well, I always sidechain the bass guitar from the kick drum. So
you do.
Yeah, every time the kick hits the bass, you know, the bass frequencies duck a little bit, you know, around like 60, 80 hertz. I always do a little multi-band compressor and I sidechain it off the kick drum. So I feel like just by doing that, you instantly just create all the space you need for the kick drum, and you can put as much low end as you want on it and it'll still cut through.
All right, so you do sidechain.
Yeah. I always sidechain the bass and kick.
I see. All right. Anything else about that?
I usually use like some sort of subharmonic like generator, you know, like the Waves R bass or something like that. I usually always throw that on the bass just to give it even more like just sub, like something around like, you know, 80 hertz or lower, just to kind of generate even more like sub frequencies, you know, because a lot of times you just can't record that stuff. Like no matter what mic you use or even DIs, sometimes you just can't. It's just really hard to get those really sub low frequencies. So a lot of times I'll use some sort of like a subharmonic generator.
And you'll do that with the DI or the amp, or it doesn't matter for you?
It depends. It does. Sometimes sometimes I'll throw on the DI. Sometimes I'll throw it over the whole bass track, you know, the entire like subgroup. It just kind of depends on the track itself, like what I'm trying to get out of it.
All right. And okay, cool. That's really, really cool. Okay. Are you using any kind of triggers? Do you replace the snare or the bass drum? You mixing it with another sample?
I'll usually use triggers just kind of like mixed in, you know, like I try to always keep the integrity of the drum kit with actual tracks. But yeah, sometimes I'll put in you know, if I think the kick needs like more attack or more bottom end, instead of like fucking cranking an EQ, I'll just throw a trigger on it and just kind of blend it in and get the sound I want out of the trigger instead of like, you know, bastardizing the actual drum track. You know,
you having your own samples that you've made, or are you using all these kind of folders
that
comes with?
It's some samples that I made, some samples that people have given me. You know, it's just a combination of stuff. A lot of times I'll use like electronic samples, even if it's an acoustic kit. I'll still use electronic samples.
I wanted to say that. I could hear in some of your works, the drums are moving from very industrial drums, but not 100%. You can hear it's like a regular drum set, but the sound moves from a very kind of industrial. It depends on the music, of course, to very raw live sound of drums that you've been like the Yob, the great. Oh my God, I'm gonna fall down here with that name because
the Great Cessation. Yeah,
you'll need to help me. Say it again.
The Great Cessation.
Cessation.
Yeah.
Like the Yob album you did from 2009, The Great Cessation. It's not gonna work, dude. It's not gonna work. I'm terrible. Why you have to be so sophisticated? Say The Great River or something. Cessation.
Sure.
Cessation. Like the Yob album you did, The Great Cessation. Oh my, it's not gonna work, dude. Never mind. I'm just gonna say, like the album from 2009 by Yob you did. And that's where like you could hear the drums were super. That's what I loved about it. And I was actually listening to that, and then the reissue they've made in 2017, and this one you've made on 2009. And what I loved about that is that it had more of that live sound through not just the drums, but that could be you know, it's not it's very important also to listen to stuff when you think about time pass, not just like, you know, today, tomorrow, this year. So when you think about time through the years, I actually liked more. I could understand that sound that came later in 2015, 16, 17 up to now, but not necessarily. It's very polished, it's very modern, but my personal taste, I actually liked that kind of live vibe into that, and the drums that you can really feel everything so heavy and fat. The sound is so raw, you know. And I'm guessing that you've been because you do have sounds like the Wayvod, which is more modern sound to it, you know. The guitars are more modern, everything is very, very, what we say, tight. Not that the other stuff are not tight, but it's kind of you know, the term.
Well, I didn't record the Wayvod record. I only mixed that. So
Right.
the tracks they sent me were like very clean. You know what I mean? Like
Right.
everything edited. Like every drum hit was already, all the little sounds in between each snare hit was gone. It was cleaned up. The bass, guitar, everything was like super clean and polished. The Yob record I did record, and we recorded that in like a barn in the middle of the woods. I mean, it was
See,
like
I knew it.
as as raw as you could get, you know. So and we wanted that sound. We wanted it to sound just raw and live, you know.
So I was right.
Yeah.
I was definitely right about that. You can hear the barn. I can definitely, I mean, I can definitely hear the
There were
barn.
goats, there were peacocks, there were pigs. Yeah.
Now you could not hear the peacocks and the pigs. Luckily, because I don't know if I wanted that to pop
Yeah.
up.
You know, they gave me like a very kind of vague sound they were going for, which luckily, you know, I've been a fan of Wayvod for a long time, so I already knew what they wanted before they even had to tell me, you know. So they approached me and they wanted me to do like a mix just to see if I was gonna fit what their vibe, what they wanted. So they sent me a track. I just did a mix on my own and sent it back to them, and they were all like, "Yeah, this is it. We want you to do the whole record." So
At Lord Mantis, where was that recorded? Because that I was really enjoying that modern guitars, that snare. All right, let's talk about that. You've been recording this one and also mixing this one. Can you tell me about that?
which album?
Death Mask.
Oh, Death Mask. Yeah. Where do
2014.
Oh, that one. So that one we tracked the drums. I think we tracked the drums at Electrical, which is Steve Albini's studio.
All right.
Yeah, I think we tracked the drums there. So that room is just like a giant reverb chamber. I mean, it's like no other room I've ever heard. It just sounds like you don't need reverb on anything. You just throw some mics in the room, and it sounds like every drum is just drenched in reverb. You know.
I'm gonna cry now. So I'll drink more. This is so beautiful. To have a beautiful room for recording mic, for recording drums. This is this is all you need.
It's my favorite drum room that I've ever worked in, like all over the world, and it's like 2 miles from my house. You know what I mean? So I'm definitely very fortunate to have that studio so close by, because that's where I record probably most of my drums are tracked in that room.
What other projects you did there? You remember?
I've done tons of shit. We did the last Pelican record we did there.
Oh wow, that album.
Wreckmeister Harmonies, we did all the stuff there. I just did an album by this local band called Facs, Facs. We did their. I've done 2 records with them there. And that's all within just like the last year. I mean, I tracked at least probably 6 or 7 albums there a year, maybe.
Oh wow, nice. So you love that room.
Yeah, it's a great room.
All right. The Indian from All Purity. That was you also recorded and mixed, and that very fat, sludgy sound of yours. Where was that recorded?
Same studio.
Yeah. All right. Yeah, I met you. Okay, it makes sense to me now. Everything is kind of connected.
Yeah.
I see. Was there any mix that you heard lately that blown your mind? Like you said, phew, I need to start practice now.
Yeah, all the time, man.
I'm rude. I'm Israeli. I'm rude, but it's not by intention. It's just the way we are structured. The brain is not working right.
Dude, I'm my worst critic, man. I'm always beating myself up over what I do, you know. But I think you kind of have to, you know, and otherwise you're never going to learn anything. So, yeah, I'm always like putting my mixes up against other records, you know, just to make sure that I'm heading in the right direction, you know, like I feel like every mixer needs to reference their stuff like all the time, constantly. I'm always referencing my mixes to other albums.
So what was like the latest thing you've heard of someone else that you said like, wow, that's a great job, I'm enjoying to listen?
I've been listening a lot of that new Deftones record. I really like the low end on that record sounds really good. Like I really like the way the bass and the drums just really are sitting together on that album. I think it sounds, that whole mix is like, it's nice and clear, but it's fat. It's super, you know, thick, aggressive. Sounds great.
Deftones always came up with amazing sound since day one. And you know what? They are one of the bands that I always reference with, always came up with great sound. And I agree with you on that one.
Amazing. Absolutely. I've been referencing that band for, you know, years. Like I think Diamond Eyes is one of the best sounding like heavy productions that's ever been created. So I reference that album all the time.
All right, let's move deeper into the rabbit hole. You are mixing in the box?
Yes. Well, it's mostly in the box. It's a little bit of a hybrid. I stem it out. I have a Neve summing mixer, 16 channels. So I sum out in stereo pairs into that. So it's like stereo drum, stereo bass, stereo guitar. And then that goes into a Allen Smart C2 VCA compressor. It's like it's kind of like an SSL bus comp. Based on that, it's a VCA compressor, but to me, it's like more high end. It just, the way it grabs, it grabs a little differently. And I like it too, because I always run it in dual mono. I don't run it in, you can make it dual mono or you can run it in stereo. I always run it in dual mono because I feel like the mixes get much wider. When you're running a mix into a stereo compressor, it's gonna react the same way on each channel, not really in regard of like, so if something's louder on the left channel, the right channel is going to compress too. You know what I mean? If you run it in dual mono, each threshold is working independently. Nice. So if something is louder in the left channel, it's not going to slam the right side, you know? So your stereo width just like widens immensely. Like you're not sinking it down into like this tiny little window. Like your imaging just gets super wide.
So you're sending everything, you send your stereo to a mono.
It's basically two mono compressors, yeah.
So you get
two independent mono compressors.
Right.
So I've got one compressor that's just working on the left and one compressor is just working on the right. It goes into a Manley like Pultec EQ.
Okay.
And I usually will, basically that kind of like sculpts my low end a little bit, because you do lose a little bit of low end when you go into the compressor. So with the Manley, I kind of make up some of the low end that gets lost. And then I usually add like 3 or 4 dB of like 5K, like some mids, just to kind of make it cut a little more. So yeah, and so that's basically like, you know, like a hybrid, like a in the box plus some outboard. And
from stuff. EQ, it goes back to digital, or you're going to tape?
No, it goes back to digital. Yeah.
So you are doing the traditional DAD.
Right. Well, it goes back into a, I've got fancy A to D converters, these Lavery converters. So and it's just a 2-channel converter. So basically out of the Manley, it goes back into Pro Tools through the Lavery converters.
Preamps. So you working on your Neve, but you use the preamps for from the converter? No, which preamps?
Preamps that I have, I've got a rack of like API, the 5 or 312s. Yeah, the 312s. And Great River. I don't know if you're familiar with the Great River freeze. Yeah, I've got a couple of those. I'm actually, I don't like right now. I'm not doing a lot of tracking because, like I said, I'm basically just set up for mixing right now, but I'm building out a space so I can start tracking. Uh, so I'm actually gonna have to start shopping for some new pre's very soon. So I'm not sure what I'm gonna do yet. I'm like still trying to figure it out.
Monitors, which one you're using?
I've got NS10s and Dyne Audio BM15s.
That's very this is like this I mean this is working perfectly together since Anistan is known for years in the industry to be very given that very flat sound, and
Yeah.
Dynaudio are awesome monitors. Are you doing the sub also through them, like you have also sub monitors for the sub, or
I have a sub on the NS10s. Yeah. Yep.
with,
I didn't for a long time, and I worked at a studio a few years back, and they had NS10s with a sub, and it just made like it was like night and day, the difference the way they sounded. So as soon as I got home, I ordered a sub for mine, and that's pretty much like I probably mix 80% on those. So I'll like spend, you know, pretty much most of the first part of the mix on the NS10s, and I'll dial it in to where I think it sounds, pretty good, and then I'll jump over to the Dyne Audios and kind of fine tune it from there. The sub I have on the NS10s is like just barely in, it's not loud at all. Like I basically just turn it up to where I can kind of start to hear it, and then I even back it off from there a little bit. It just needs like something just to fill that space down there, because the NS10s obviously don't have
right.
anything that low. So and it just makes easier. It's just better to listen to them. I can listen to them for longer periods of time. With the sub, it's not nearly as ear fatiguing. And I usually monitor super quiet, like very, very quiet. Very rarely do I get loud at all. Like sometimes I'll crank it up just for like a couple seconds just to hear what it sounds like. But majority of the time I'm mixing super quiet.
You did you say the name of your subs?
It's just a Yamaha. I don't even know the model number. I bought it on Amazon for like $100.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Yeah, it's just a Yamaha sub. I don't know.
I need some subs in my life. And listening to you saying that you bought it in $100 from eBay, that's making me feel much, much better. Because it's like an endless, gear is an endless world.
Yeah.
And you can start and never end, and me for sure.
Oh yeah, totally.
So it's like sometimes you really just need to go back into what I need. Like, what do I really need to reach what I need?
Right.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, totally, man.
So I'm like going to buy everything from start, and taking a loans and all that, and just like buying everything new. But I am like trying to understand what I want to do different this time. What I need to for my life to be easier. Because right now I'm working harder, and I want that to be changed. And that's that's beautiful, because you're working with the Anistan, and which is like it's the ugliest monitor ever been survived.
They're like they're the perfect speaker in my opinion. Like there's a reason that people have been using them for fucking 30 years, 40 years, because they do one thing but they do it really well, and there's really no speaker that I've found that you can hear the mid-range like you can on NS10s.
How many years are you working with them?
I've had the same set of NS10s since 2002, I think, is when I bought them. Nice. So a long time, almost 20 years.
It is. And also the Dyne Audio?
Yeah, Dyne Audios. I had BM6s up until like 3 years ago. I got the 15s, but I had the BM6s for probably like 15 years. But I wanted something, since I'm going to be doing more tracking in my room, I wanted something that with a little more wattage. So the BM15s are, I forget how much watt, but they're like twice as loud as the BM6s. So I upgraded to those.
You did up, yeah. And once that's the problem also with work. Not the problem. That's the good thing with working with a piece of gear for a long time. You kind of get used to it. You know what works with it, what's not. So then replacing it and start to learn new gear. You know what
Right.
I'm talking about. So
Yeah,
it's
yeah.
also something it needs to be taken.
Prefer the BM6s. I like the way they sound a little better than the 15s, but I just needed something with more wattage. Like the sixes just couldn't get loud enough for like tracking. You know.
You're tracking in a big room.
Well, I usually have like the guitar players like sitting literally right next to me.
Let's talk about microphones. Let's say
Okay.
top 5.
Top 5.
Yes.
Um, well, usually for kick, pretty much every time for kick, I use a Audix D6 in the hole, and a U47, like a Fat 47, out front, like like out front on the right on the head. So that's usually like the two mics I use for kick. Snare, snare and toms, I always like to do like a small condenser on top and a dynamic on the bottom. So it might be like a KM 84 on the top, and like a Sennheiser 441 on the bottom, or 57 on the bottom even. And then toms are kind of the same way. I'll do like a small diaphragm condenser, like a 451 or something on top, and then or like those Josephson E22s. I use those a lot on like top snare and top toms. And then underneath the toms, I'll always use like a dynamic, like a 57 or a 421. I don't like 421s on top, but they're okay on the bottom. But usually it's like a 57 or a D2 or something like that on the bottom.
The overheads? You said overheads?
Overheads, I usually do like small diaphragm condensers, like in like an XY position. I try not to go too wide with them because I like to keep them tight. You know, it helps with the phasing and all that shit. And I just think the imaging is just a little better. And I'll usually spot mic all the cymbals, or at least most of them, at least like hi-hat and ride. And then if there's like a China, I'll definitely spot mic the China. But sometimes I'll just spot mic every cymbal. So that way I've got control over every little aspect.
Spot mic, you mean you also put mics on them?
Yeah,
on each of them?
Exactly. Yeah, I'll put a mic on each individual crash cymbal.
Really?
Yeah.
Nice. And you do like an audience view or drummer view?
I do drummer. Yeah.
Yeah.
Because I like to air.
Fuck the audience.
When I'm mixing, I like to air drum, and it fucks me
Right.
up. I'm like, if I'm air drumming and then I go to do a roll and it goes this way, and
I really never understood that, the audience
Yeah.
view. Who cares?
Yeah, it doesn't make any sense.
No, it doesn't, right? Room mics. Which one are you gonna use?
I always use ribbons. Usually like Cole's 4038s, or like an old like RCA ribbon, like a 44 or something. Even like a Royer, like 121 or 122. I'll use those for room mics. But yeah, usually, sometimes I'll use condensers, like but I'll always have room mics or ribbon mics mixed in with it. So usually I'll put like ribbons kind of out front of the kit to kind of capture the entire kit. I don't try to get the whole kit from the overheads. I try to keep the overheads like pretty much just for cymbals. And I try to capture the whole kit with like mics out front, you know what I mean? So, and usually that's always ribbons, because I like darker sounding mics for rooms and stuff like that. Yeah.
So you don't need to
so
work as hard when you mix it. And
yeah, and that's, you get a lot of like nice low end from those microphones. So yeah, and then sometimes I'll have like some large diaphragm condensers for room mics, but I'll always go to ribbons first for that stuff.
And I guess, you know, you said you're working in larger rooms. Are you positioning them also like the ribbons one you place close to the drums? You use also the more far mics, or
I usually I'll have some mics out front, maybe 3 to 5 feet, and then depending on the room, then I'll throw some out really far. But I try not to go like too crazy with it, because if you get just a certain point where you just get so far, there's such a delay,
right
between the close mics and the room mics, that you get this weird,
phase
just
thing?
kind of, yeah. So I try not to go too crazy with them, and that's what I like about Albini's room, is the way that it's configured is you can keep the mic close to the kit, but you still get like a huge room sound from it. You know what I mean? You don't need to
Wow,
put the mics like really far away. You can keep them pretty close and it still sounds huge.
you do. That's awesome.
To
Right,
me, like the most important thing is just tuning the fucking drums. You know what I mean? Making
right.
sure that they're in tune and they sound good and the heads are new. And I mean, you'll be surprised like how little attention gets put into that side of things sometimes. And to me, that's the most important. It doesn't matter what microphone you have.
Right.
If your drums need to be in tune, the drum needs to sound good. So I spend a lot of time. Like I'll spend hours just tuning drums and trying different drum combinations. Like maybe the kick from this uh, drum set and a tom from another kit and a floor tom from, you know what I mean? Like we'll try multiple combinations of kits to get the right sound, because to me that's the most important thing. So I'd rather spend like way more time fucking with that shit than like trying out a bunch of different microphones.
I do know what you mean. And you said you put microphones on each cymbal too, but when you start to mix the drums, do you use them? Like, do you really use it?
Sometimes I don't. Sometimes I don't. Sometimes I'll ditch them. Sometimes I only use them for certain parts of the song. Like if there's like a high energy part where he goes to like the cymbal and he starts fucking wailing on it, maybe I'll just use that mic on
Nice.
that one particular section. You know
Then
what
you
I mean?
don't need to change the whole dynamic of the set. You can just
Exactly. Yeah, I
right
can literally just pop this track in and then pop
that's
it back
brilliant.
out. Yeah.
You do any kind of like isolations between microphones or kind of techniques, or just let it to be as organic?
Yeah, I mean, if the cymbals get kind of crazy, I'll try and do some trickery as far as trying to isolate cymbals from drums and stuff, but generally not. I try, like I said, I try to spend a lot of time out front and just get everything sounding really good, swapping out cymbals, swapping out drums, uh, and just trying to get it to where everything is sitting really good, because so you have to do that sometimes. Like some drummers are really heavy on the cymbals, so
Right.
you need to have cymbals available that are like maybe a little darker, so when they started bashing away on it, it doesn't just overtake the entire room. So you just have to kind
Exactly.
of play with stuff like that. But yeah, I don't. I try to just let everything go. I don't isolate it too much.
You do take care of phase on the mixing, or you don't even
I,
bother?
I try to get it as close as possible tracking, and then when I mix, I line everything when
You
I
do
mix.
do that, okay.
Yeah.
And when you do recording drums, you go through any kind of compressors or anything like, or everything up in the mix, in the box?
I usually always compress the kick drum just to just keep it in the pocket a little bit. Sometimes I'll compress the snare, but not normally. I like a lot of dynamics on the snare drum, so I don't. Even when I mix, I try not to go too crazy with the compression on that. I like it when it kind of swells, and you know what I mean. I don't want to like keep it too contained.
And you can
Um,
definitely hear it in your work that you have that room and space. So I was guessing that you probably prefer to have as clean source as possible and do everything out there,
yeah,
so you're not getting crazy with all kind of process before you mix it,
yeah. I mean, I'll compress like a room mic, or sometimes I'll compress the room mics in general just to level them out a little bit. But I try not to go too crazy, or if I do go crazy during the tracking, I'll definitely have a track that's not very compressed, as like a safety. So if I want to if I do have a microphone that I'm like, yeah, I want to smash the fuck out of this, I can, because I know I've got another track that's not smashed. You know what I mean? So I can
Yeah.
always go back to that if I want. But usually I'll like, if I'm at a studio and they have like little weird microphones, like little fucked up microphones, I'll throw those in the room and fuck with those, distort them, compress them, you know, just get like weird sounds. And if we end up using it, cool. If not, you know, whatever. It took like 5 minutes to set it up. So, you know,
360-degree kind of mixing. Not all platforms are still allowing that to be heard. You know, you have Tidal today that's giving you the FLAC experience, and you have Avid now came with their own distributor kind of music player that allows to have that new technology that allows basically producers and mixers get the sound as it is on your table and just move it to the audience. Now, it's not 100% yet because it goes through different distributors that have their own, you probably know what I'm talking about, requirements of still 16, 44, 16, you know, and we still stuck there where the CD was, you know, even though we have the option, we have the technology to go through straight to the internet. We still have problems with that we can't just go right, you know, into 32-bit rate or higher because of the requirements to keep it that way. But still, there are few of them that allow what they call better listening experience to have more than 16-bit rate and 44 hertz. You mess with that a little bit, and are you considering that with the way you're mixing today, let's say from before, like 10
Are you
years
talking
ago?
about like surround sound? Is that what you're referring to?
Yes.
No, I have no interest in that. I think that shit is a gimmick and it'll always be a gimmick. They've been talking about this for fucking 20 years. You know, it's never going to catch on because the average person doesn't even know how to can barely set up 2 speakers.
Right.
You know, I've gone over to people's houses and just being like, how the fuck can you listen to music in here? You've got one speaker on one side of the room and the other speaker on the other side of the room. They can't even set up 2 speakers. So there's no way they're going to set up 7 speakers properly to where you're going to actually experience it how it was intended to sound. You know what I mean? So
absolutely. And eventually, yeah, go ahead.
Well, I mean, like when I was going to school for production, they brought in this Eric Clapton album that was mixed in 7.1, and they were like, "This is going to be the future."
Right.
And it's 20 years later, and it's still not. Nobody's
not the future. They just keep selling it, and they do keep selling it. I mean, they do. And the problem is that eventually you hear it in your stereo, you know, headphones, and going through MP3. That's what the most are doing. And even the people that really enjoy music would probably, you know, get the FLAC. And that's it. That's where it's gonna end, you know. But that's good that we have that option. But
yeah, I mean, if you want the high resolution tracks, yeah, that's cool. That's, you know, should be available. But the general public just doesn't care about that shit. They want convenience and they want cheap. You know what I mean? So like the Neil Young thing, you know, I applaud him for putting out his portable player, the high resolution thing that he did, but it was a total flop, and I knew it was gonna be, you know, because people don't want to spend the money for that. They don't give a shit about it. They put in their earbuds or whatever, and they, you know, listen to it on like shitty little computer speakers. You know, I bought like a little Bluetooth like little radio, and I have in my studio now, and I reference mixes on it all the time because I've noticed that like that's how majority of people listen to music now, are these little tiny little Bluetooth speakers.
That's
So I
right.
want to know what my mixes sound like on those things. You know what I mean? So
I do know what you mean, and the sad part is that I had to. I don't know if I want to ask if it happened to you too. Maybe I'm wrong doing that, but I had to lower sometimes the quality of what I found as quality because it sounded better on the shitty sound system. You know what I mean? And
I
then
mean,
you're like, if that's what's gonna help it sound better there, I'll do it because that's the majority of how people listen to music.
absolutely.
Um,
You need to reference it on stuff like that because that's ultimately that's what it's going to be played back on. It's not going to be played back on these $16,000 monitors. It's going to be played back on this $70 Bluetooth speaker. You know what I mean? So
Absolutely.
you need to reference that shit.
Yeah, but this is like their problem, the mastering guy's problem. This is what
Yeah,
that's
exactly.
what they have to deal with.
Leave it for that guy.
Um, if we talked about microphones, so guitars, when you're gonna record a guitar, this is we're talking about. People who know you for your work, with very heavy sound. And how involved are you with choosing the amps for the guitar players, if you do at all? And if you do, what microphones will you choose, and how you place them?
As far as amps, I mean, it kind of depends on the guitarist. You know, some guitarists are a little more uh, controlling over their amp selection, but I will go in there and start fucking with the amp. I'll change EQs. I'll add gain. I'll take away gain all day long. You know, I won't even ask permission most of the time. I'll just walk in there and start doing it.
Right.
But so a lot of guys like will just come to me and be like, you choose the sound. This is your thing. You make it happen. So I'll pick the amp and I'll pick the pedals and basically I'll choose the entire path other than the guitar. You know what I mean? So it really depends on the player. Like some players are super picky about their sound and some aren't, and some
And
just
if they
won't.
aren't, which one you gonna take? Which amps you gonna prefer?
I mean, it just totally depends on the sound. It depends on what's available. You know, it really just depends on a lot of things.
Have you heard about the Black Hawk company? I'm talking
Ah,
with. You haven't? It's really
yeah,
good and new, very custom amps and pedals that are now start to see everywhere. People use them in the underground music scene. And I'm talking with the guy next week because I was like, first of all, it's looking very impressive. The
yeah.
amps itself is like it's doing I think everything handmade. It sounds incredible. And it's of course tubes and everything. I would like to know more about that. They have pedals and a list of gear. I was just wondering if you're using any of those because I just
No,
talked with the
I
guy
haven't
next
heard
week.
of those yet.
So you're gonna use like 57 or something more
Yeah, I
functional?
mean, usually, I always usually use a ribbon and a dynamic. Sometimes I'll use like a large diaphragm condenser, but normally it's like a Royer 121, or I've been really into those SC VR ones, the little voodoo ribbon mics they make. Um,
Which one?
the company's called SE,
Ah, yeah,
and
yeah, SC.
yeah, they're called like Voodoo or VR
Right.
one something. Um, those mics sound incredible. So I'll usually use like a mic like that, like a ribbon mic with a 57 or a 609 or the Audix i5 sounds really cool on guitar.
Ah, that's a pretty
So
good
yeah,
amp.
it's usually a combination of those. Or I love like weird, like when I go in a studio and there's like the crate with like all the broken shitty microphones. I love those on guitar. Like I'll usually grab some of those if they're available, and I'll put those on guitar. Like
Will
I
you?
did a record in London where the studio had somebody made a microphone out of a soup can, and I put that on the guitar, and it sounded great. You know, it was cool. Just added like a weird, like nasty fucking sound to it.
Will you like take the will you take the cabinet and start to open the back and put on the back too and do all that, or just
No,
like
I
plug it
usually
on the
just
grill?
Yeah, I usually I prefer 212s, honestly. I prefer smaller cabinets.
All
So if
right.
I own like 3 212 cabinets, or actually no, I own 5 212 cabinets, and that's what I prefer to track guitar out of. I just like, I mean, you only end up miking like one or two speakers anyway. You know what I mean? So
Yeah.
you get a tighter sound. You're not having all this air movement. So
And
yeah,
also you can, boost it and it's actually gonna work because
yeah,
it's only on
exactly.
stage. You
You
don't
can
need that
crank it.
power.
You can
Right.
get more speaker breakup
Making
that way.
sense.
So yeah, that's what I prefer to use. But no, I usually put the microphones like a hand width, like, so if this is the front of the speaker, like the cone of the speaker, then I'll have the mics, set about that far back. It's about a hand width away.
No kissing the grill for you.
No, I don't put it too close because you get a lot of low end that way. You're boosting a ton of low end, unless
Unless you're
sometimes
positioning
that's
it.
the sound I want. Yeah, because you're the proximity of the sound to the microphone, you're just boosting a shit ton of low end. So I found that you don't get as much clarity if you're putting the microphone right up against the grill. I like to bring it back a few inches.
All right.
And I also feel like you kind of get more of the sound of the cab that way. Instead of just the sound of the speaker, when you pull it back a little bit, you start to hear more of the cab and the way the cab resonates.
So you do aim it directly to the cone, just a little bit.
Yeah, like 5 to 6 inches back. Yeah.
All right, it's the microphone for the vocals. I know it's very different from singer to singer. There are many things that need to be taken under consideration, but eventually you do mix it in a very busy environment with a lot of other instruments. If that fact is something that you consider when you need to choose a microphone for the singer that you're gonna record.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, especially for like heavier music with like screamy vocals, I never use a condenser. I always use a dynamic. Usually it's a SM7, but sometimes I'll use a 58. Sometimes I'll use a 57, but most of the time it's an SM7. And if it's if we're going for like a more singy, like airy
Right.
vocal, then I'll use a condenser on that. But most of the time, like 90% of the time, I track vocals through an SM7. That's it.
Yeah, because I don't remember right now. I think it's Blood Ceremony, the band that I found only one production of yours that there was a female singer. Is
Yeah.
it true that you did only one with a female singer?
No, no,
No.
I've done tons. Yeah.
Okay, because I don't know why. From the list on your website, not my fault.
Oh yeah,
Um,
yeah. Don't trust anything my website tells you.
I found only one female singer there, so that I was also listening to the vocals. Which microphone you used there on that bloody ceremony? I think that was the what I'm talking about.
Yeah. I think I used a C12A, an AKG C12A. Uh, I think so. That was a long time ago. But yeah, that,
2011.
yeah, that was a long, to me
It
that
is
was
a
a long
long
time
time when you think about it.
ago.
The SM7B is very known in that screaming for screaming.
Yeah, I
It's
mean, I use it for like singing vocals too. I mean, it's great for that as well. I like it because it's got a very dynamic or very small range. It doesn't. It's not like, I mean, it can get pretty low, but it's not like super subby, and it doesn't go real high. So it's kind of like a very narrow bandwidth, and that's what I like about it. Like it doesn't pick up a lot of bullshit that you don't end up needing.
yeah, it's a great microphone. It's definitely a very usable one in the studio because almost everything you put it on, it's gonna work.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, plugins. I when you working in the box and let's say now you have a vocal track, what is the process that you're gonna put on, like the best plugins you most usable plugins for vocals?
Um, I usually start with like some sort of EQ. Usually it's just like the standard Pro Tools EQ. Um, and I'll like use that as just like a notch EQ. Just get rid of any like annoying bullshit that I don't want, like any kind of nasally mid-range crap. And then I usually send it through my favorite vocal compressor is the TubeTech CL1.
See,
That yeah, it's like a LA2A with like more features. And then usually I'll add some sort of saturation to it, like decapitator or something like that, you know, to kind of just give it a little fuzziness.
nice. Let's say process on your snare. That's, I think I would love to hear about that. Tell me all your secrets now, and then you can go.
Snares. Snares usually I love the API 560, the graphic EQs. I
Yeah,
use those on
great.
all my drums. Like that's kick, snare, toms. Every drum gets a 560. And so yeah, every drum gets a API 560, and then depending on the drum, like snare, uh, sometimes I'll put a 1176 on it. But I love the soft tube console one. That's like my jam now. So it's like their console emulation, and that goes on like every track. Every track gets that, and it has dynamics, it has EQ, it has saturation, all built into each plugin. So that's
I need
like
to check it out.
majority.
I don't know that one.
Oh, that's amazing. The company's called Soft Tube,
Soft.
and they make a thing called Console One, and you have a controller with it. So you don't use a mouse. You actually have knobs that you control it with, and it's the greatest thing ever. And they have SSL, Neves, APIs, and you can all the Universal Audio stuff you can run inside their plugins, and you
It's
can
coming with a
control.
controller.
Yeah, you can control it with a controller. Yeah, that thing's been a game changer as far as mix. That's the thing I've always hated about mixing in the box, because for years I mix on a console, you know,
Right.
and but I everybody's mixing in the box now, and bands expect you to mix in a box because they want to be able to like recall a session, change one thing, and then print it. So I've always struggled with mixing in the box. I just hate it. I hate using a mouse. I hate using a fucking computer keyboard.
Right.
And this thing is awesome because you can control all the parameters with it's a dedicated controller, and you can pull up the plugin with it. You hit a button, the plugin opens up. You fucking do your thing. You hit the button, it closes. It's fucking awesome.
And you're limited, but you're limited to the plugins that are working with that. Like you can't use
Right,
any.
exactly.
But yeah, they have
It
everything.
only Universal Audio stuff works with it. But I mean, it has like it's basically like a SSL strip, you know. So
Right.
it has a gate, it has a EQ, it has a compressor, it has saturation.
Sounds like you don't need anything else.
Exactly. That's really all you need. Yeah. So that goes on every channel. So it works like a console. So you have it on every track. And then you can just dial up any track at any point that you want. You know, tweak it and then close it.
So you're not mixing outside the box anymore. Like
No.
You're not using your.
Yeah, I had to stop doing that just because, you know, I just kept getting more and more requests from bands that you know they just want to send me tracks to mix, and so I can't really mix that on a console and then wait for them to, you know, send me notes and so I can change it, so then I can move on to another song. So yeah, just by, you know, just basically I was just forced into working in the box, which I actually prefer now because I can step away from a mix and I can start working on another record while I'm waiting for this band to send me revisions. And then, you know, I can work on another album, send that off, and then the other band will send me notes, and I can pull their session back up, do revisions, send that off, go back to the other. I mean, like last fall, I had like 13 albums I was mixing at one time, and they were all in like various stages, you know. And it was great because I could just jump from one record to the other, and it was, you know, I could just recall everything, mix it, close it, open up another one. It's awesome.
Really? Have you ever been asked to record on a tape? Any of
Um,
any of your projects
yeah,
out there
I
are
usually
recorded on tape?
I talk bands out of it because it's just, you know, financially it just doesn't make any sense. It's so expensive now. Um, and it's just Pro Tools is obviously so much faster. So at the end of the day, it's like, okay, yeah, you can track to tape, or you can get another day or two in the studio. You know what I mean? Like which do you think is more important? So, and usually they're like, okay, yeah, you're right. So we don't. I haven't tracked a tape, and I think the last time I tracked a tape was like 10 years ago.
Do you have anything out there on tape that like something I can listen
Yeah,
to?
yeah. I mean,
What it?
like most of the stuff that I did up until about 10 years ago was like either track to tape, or the drums were either track to tape, and then we dumped into Pro Tools and finished everything else.
Which project is it? I can listen to that it's on tape.
I mean, I guess anything that I did, like the early Indian records, we did that way. The early Lord Mantis records, this band Cough, pretty much anything that I did up until like 2010 was done
Yeah,
like that. Yeah,
was recorded. Corrections House, Last City Zero. You did also recording and mixing. I forgot to talk
right.
about that one in 2013. That was recorded where? Also in this in
Well,
Albany.
that was just done at my studio because it was all electronic. So, or most of it anyway. It was like electronics and guitar, vocals.
And you mixed it there also.
Yeah.
Anything special did on that album?
No, I mean, I did all the programming for it. So all the drum beats I did, all the synth stuff I did. Um, yeah, that was about, you know, and then everything else is Scott played guitar, Mike sang. Oh, Bruce, uh, we had sax. So Bruce played sax and sang.
All right. I am very inspired, as I thought I would be, and I also knew that I'm not gonna let you go very quickly after I'm gonna talk about all these plugins. I definitely want to check the Universal Audio um, thing you're working on. I'm very much a believer to have a solution, one solution for everything, and if you say
Yeah,
it's working well,
yeah,
and I need to check it out.
yeah. I mean,
Uh,
I that's what I miss about mixing on consoles is all the tracks go through one piece of gear. You know what I
right.
mean? The entire mix goes through the same piece of gear, and I feel like that's getting lost now because, you know, every you've got a one plugin for your kick drum, a completely different plugin for your snare, a completely different plugin for your hi hat. So everything's just hitting different, you know, different boxes, and it just doesn't sound as cohesive. That's what I love
Right.
about the soft tube thing, is it emulates a console. So you put it on every track, and so every track has that same sound, you
Right.
know.
Right.
So
Awesome.
it gives that sound of like mixing through a console.
That's amazing. That's pretty much amazing. You do any kind of automations, like you're
Yeah, you can do automation with it. Yep.
yeah, and you do a lot as a producer. You're working on a lot of automation through the songs
Yeah,
for
yeah,
giving
yeah.
dynamic.
I like things to always be moving and changing. I have the Presonus fader or whatever, the fader one, where the fuck it's called. So I do most of my automation with that. You know, I'll just arm a track, and as it's playing, I'll write in the automation
Nice.
manually with the fader instead of trying to use the fucking mouse.
And you do that on which track? Mostly like guitars.
Guitars, vocals, even drums. Like I always like if there's like a fill or something, I'll boost the drums during the fill or certain sections, or if it's like a part that kind of breaks down, then I'll pull the drums down, you know, just shit like that. I'm always writing stuff throughout the entire song because to me that's like the life of it, you know. That's that's how you play normally. You know, you play when you're playing an instrument live, you tend to play harder during the louder parts and softer during the quieter parts. So I'm always using automation to just kind of reinforce the flow of the song, you know.
Anything before I let you go about your own technique as a producer, as a mixer, when you sit down with the music, that you think that it's kind of you, it's like something you do each and every time, it's your thing.
I mean, to me, like I was saying with the drums earlier, is to me the most important thing and something that I always do is I spend a lot of time with the instruments, and I spend a lot of time like finding the right sound before I even touch a microphone. I'll spend hours just dialing, like trying different guitar amps, trying different pedals, trying different guitars, trying different drums, you know, because that to me that's the most important thing. Because if you don't have it right there, you're not gonna have it right in any stage along the way. You know, you're always gonna be fighting with it.
Right.
So to me, that's the most important thing, and that's the thing that I always try to focus the most of my time on early on, is really just taking the time, even if it takes an entire day, it's totally worth it to spend the time and get the drums and the instruments sounding the way you want them to sound in the room right then and there before you even think about grabbing a mic, you know.
Right. And when you, that's very true. You can't beat the source. The source is important.
Exactly.
So but when you're mixing and producing, beside that, universal audio, you said you use a lot on all your tracks, about a technique or something that you do that.
um Yeah, I guess I try when I mix. I use a lot of delays instead of reverbs. I've noticed that a lot of people will tend to like just go toward reverbs, but uh, I don't know. I try to use more delays when I mix. I feel like it adds the atmosphere. It adds the texture without clouding up the mix too much. You know, when you're adding reverb, you're also adding a layer of like fuzz and fog to the whole mix.
That's
When
one of
you're
my issues all the time that I've figured out lately. I do
yeah,
overuse reverbs,
yeah,
and then
reverb can definitely get overused for sure.
yeah, yeah, yeah. And because it's like a mind trick, because you think like, I want to have it bigger, you know,
Right.
I want to have it larger, but then what you do is just like taking space of other stuff, and it's always
Yeah.
fighting with each other. So it's
Well, and also what happens is you start pushing all your instruments in the background, and you end up with a mix that sounds even smaller. You know what I mean? When you're
right.
trying to make it bigger, you end up like fucking yourself, and you end up making it
Absolutely.
smaller instead. So yeah, I mean, I always try to use like I'll like on a vocal, I'll have uh yeah, it's very small amount of reverb just to like give it a little bit of room, just so it doesn't sound like it's in a non-room. You know what I mean?
Right.
And then I'll have like 6 or 7 delays on it.
Really. I
Yeah,
see. I see. And the guitars, how many, when you start to sit down and mix, you find yourself with how many layers, how many tracks that you actually use eventually?
it depends on the band, but there's usually a lot of guitar tracks.
I know that's
Yeah, um,
that's your sound.
yeah, yeah.
That's your
I mean,
sound.
it needs to sound dense.
Thank you for your incredible work. And for everyone, even if you know the bands that we talked about, and even if not, there's a lot on the list, by the way. We didn't mention Woven Hand, and of course, I Ate God, you did, and a lot of stuff that we kind of grew on that sound. And even if you do know those bands, listen just once. If you're interested in that music and you love that music, just listen once to the work that is this man here did through the years to understand why I am mumbling here. Um, because this is unbelievable when it comes to art, to sound. I think when I say I'm getting excited by a song and by sound, those bands are in the list, and that's why the production is unbelievable, and it survived through the years, and I'm going to tell you that it's going to survive 40, 50, and 60 and 100 years more. Never mind the technology, never mind if tapes will go back or not or whatever, because it's so great. And I am very much it's one of my favorite conversation ever. I could sit down with you for hours for sure.
Yeah.
And I'm so
Well, maybe
happy.
one day we can sit down in person and talk about it.
I really really do hope so. And you know, they always ask you who's the dead musician that you would love to sit with, and I'm so happy that I don't need to have a dead musician to sit down. Like you're still here, you're
I'm
still
not dead
here.
yet.
You're not dead yet. You're here, and I'm talking to you, and I'm talking to you after real understanding a little bit about that. And you know, there's a lot of great music out there, and engineers and sound and producers for sure, but this is my thing, you know. This is my sound, my music, and my cup of tea or whiskey or whatever it is that you drink out there. So listen to the work. And uh, you know, if you are not as excited about this conversation, then I don't want to know you. If you are excited about this conversation, I do want to know you. You need to follow where people can find you.
Oh, like social media and stuff.
Yes.
Yeah, yeah. I've got an Instagram. I've got Facebook. All that shit. Twitter.
And I'm guessing you're very, very busy now with the issues going on in the world. Is this affecting you in any way?
Not really, man. Like last year was insanely busy for me. So so far it hasn't really affected any of my work stuff. I
That's
mean,
good.
I had sessions that canceled or had to reschedule, obviously, but yeah, I mean, it hasn't been that big of a difference.
I'm going to follow or keep following what you do and your work. And I'm so happy that I was being able to do that, because that's something I wanted to do for a long time, but I didn't have the balls. I still don't have them, but I had decided to do that. I'm so honored. You have no idea how much I am honored. Also because I'm here and I'm so disconnected from the world, and all I have is music. You know, all I have is what I put on my ears in my headphones, and what I was raised on. And I was always, as a kid, was lured into that sound, and I was like, there's a way to do that. And that challenge, you know, you did it. You made people like me think I can do that. What is that? First of all, you made people like me say, what is that thing?
Yeah.
Is it even possible? And I am giving you all the compliment. I don't have enough to give you, to tell you, to really thank you for all this art that you're doing. And I know sometimes it feels like it's not appreciated. And for sure, with what we're doing, and we work like crazy people.
Right.
But I want to tell you how that affected your sound was affecting me. And
Cool.
yes, it's amazing, and I am so happy that I've been able to talk to you. You know, it's not like you didn't invent anything off the ground, but you've been doing all these experiments, and I'm sure the road was long. Did you know from a young age you're gonna go do that? Was that
Uh, I mean, kind of like I started recording bands and working with bands when I was a teenager. You know, uh, cassette 4 track that I would record like my friends. You know, they're like I'll make demos for them for their punk bands or whatever. But yeah, I mean, I've started doing this shit like literally when I was in like high school.
did you ever learn sound engineering, or that was just like something you always did?
No, I went to school for it. Yeah,
Did you? How many years you teach it there? I don't know. Are you
it
learning
was
there?
just like a uh, it was like a year and a half. It was like not like accredited college. It was just like a school that just does like sound production.
Did you learn anything there, or most of it you did by yourself?
No, I did. Yeah, for
Yeah,
sure.
yeah.
Yeah, I mean it's so specialized. You know, you're only learning recording techniques for music. You know, there were other ones you could do too, like music for or audio for film, live audio. But I only did the music side. So I mean, it's very specialized. You know, and you're going like 10 hours a day. You know, it was a full time. You couldn't have a job. Like it was a full time thing for like a year and a half.
Mm-hmm.
So they crammed a lot in a small amount of time.
I see. When was that you were learning?
That was 97,
Oh, yeah. So it's like a long time
90,
ago.
97, 98. Yeah.
And since that, you've been like working in studios. Yours,
Yep.
you did you work in other studios before you worked in yours?
Yeah. When I first moved to Chicago, I worked out of a studio called Studio Chicago. And that was like where I got started. And then I started working for a record label after that. And then I opened my own studio.
And you have your own studio. How long you're working with your clients in your own studio?
I mean, I opened my first studio in 2002.
2002.
Yeah.
And from what I saw in pictures on Facebook, it looks amazing even before the
Well, that's the new one. I that one is like I just built that like literally this year. Like during the like right before the pandemic, I finished the tracking room or
and I,
I finished the control room.
the control room. And I so wish I can come visit if you will invite me to
Yeah, of course.
see the studio and what's going on there, because this is like from the picture I was like fantastic. So again, I'm not going to take more of your time because we're already talking like 4 hours, I think. But I am appreciating that a lot, and I know that it's super exciting and a lot of information. I'm probably going to watch it again and again and again and write notes like a nerd. And
Cool.
thank you a lot. And I'm
Yeah,
going to
thank
say
you. This is
thank
fun.
you for coming and talking to me. And for everyone who's watching, I hope you enjoy this. I definitely did. You could tell. And see you next time.
All right. See you.
All right. Bye.
Take care. Bye.
Bye bye.